Alright, hey, what's going on, guys? So it's been a while since I uploaded. The last few videos that I did upload was more about the van build, and those were just shorts. I've been busy with van build. I've also been repairing, but I haven't been uploading too many videos because I just felt like I just need to focus on the van. So anyways, let's continue on with this repair. It's a PS5 HDMI port. I just realistically I needed to upload some kind of content. I couldn't just um uploading and not have any and and channel goes. So let me turn on this light because probably has something autofocus here. But regardless, let's go ahead and let's get this old port out and let's get the new port in and on our microscope. Not on yet. I don't see the microscope camera on this camera. What's going on with it? Usually I have the microscope. Okay, there we go. All right, good. Okay, and go. Now we can turn. Okay, so here is our HDMI port. Let's zoom out. This we're way up close to this thing. So that's the port right there, and right there. So we're gonna have to most definitely. Okay, there we go. So we have the port. I think you guys can see that. I think. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and let's lift this port out, and we'll put a new one on. The first thing I do is there's this sticker underneath the bottom here. I just remove that. Because if not, then you end up burning that sticker. And trust me, the smell from that thing. All right. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's hold on. Let's edit this also. So we're not stuck with this name. And the customer did ask me, how hard is it? And I told them it's routine because I do these replacement on a regular basis. Almost, I'm gonna say pretty much every day I do at least, probably at least one. At least one. I'm gonna give myself that. Okay. All right. So what I'm doing is just heating it up. And I'm trying to put it in a spot where you guys can see it. That's really what I'm trying to do here. And I'm kind of, my head is kind of covering half of it. So I'm gonna shrink myself down a little bit, and that way, there we go. And I like to put some kind of weight on it, which really helps me keep this thing from from the board from tipping to the one side or the other. And remember, you're not soldering without some flux, so I'm just heating up the board a little bit before I add some flux to it. And there we go. And usually I use a fume extractor, but it makes so much noise that I sometimes I just don't feel like it's necessary in my situation to use it. So that's why you're not seeing it on right now or hearing it on right now. This is not even pinching down. And there we go, port is out. HDMI port has been removed. And time to put the new one in. Alright, so now we're just going to add some solder. Where we just remove that connector. I add a lower melting temperature solder to the whole thing. I don't remove all the solder that's already here and add new, completely new solder and clean out all the holes and stuff like that. I don't do that. You can do it, especially if you're new to this. That's probably going to be not a lot easier, but that's the best way to learn. If you're going to be doing these. Okay, and you can go ahead and clean up. As you can tell, I left big blobs of solder, and the reason why I do that is just to make sure that I have enough solder. So when this melts into the hole and I put the new port in, it just kind of falls in place, and I can just move it around a little bit, and that should be good. So grab a port, and what else? I mean, another method you can do is, and I'm going to do that right now, just so you guys can kind of see that, is take my port, get my soldering iron, and I have a lot of solder on here, so I'm going to get rid of a lot of it, most of it, all of it, and I'm going to add new solder to this. And then all you do is just touch these pins up. And you can see that one is bridging. That's okay. It's even if it's bridging now, you can go back later on and clear the bridging. You're just mostly focused on getting some solder on each of these pins. At least that's how I do it. I focus on getting solder on every pin, and I don't necessarily worry about bridging or anything like that. Right now you're just seeing me just kind of being stupid about it and just spinning it all up, but you don't have to do that. You can simply just once you've got enough solder on there, you can just leave it, even if it's a little bit excessive, just leave it on there and go back later on and clear it. And I'm just waiting to see all these connectors melt, and that lets me know that it's time for me to just drop this in place. And you can see this one kind of dropping into the hole. As soon as it's flat, then you should be good to go. Like that. See that one that just fell in? You want all of them to do that. All 4 holes. Which lets you know that the solder is melted and ready to go. And just press this firmly down. See, that's why I put the weight on there, because if not, then the board kind of does that, right? And let's look at this underneath the microscope and let's see what it looks like before we continue. Because you want to make sure that it's aligned. Yep, so it's aligned. And another thing that you want to make sure is that it's not lifted off the board too much, because what will happen is sometimes you'll go back and you'll look and you'll notice that the pins are not touching the board. You'll have too much distance between the actual pins and the board, and it's hard for you to solder. Then you kind of have to take your soldering iron and just use the tip of it to push those pins down. At least that's how I have done it before. So I'm just touching up these pins before I come back with my hot air, and I will make sure that they're secure once more. And as soon as I see that copper look is gone from those pins, that lets me know that there's solder on them, and I'm happy with that. As long as I have solder on them, I can come back later on . And remember, in these cases, it doesn't hurt to add some flux while you're working, okay? So I always suggest add some flux if you can, or you should. Okay. So now I added some more flux. I'm just gonna spread it all out. And then one more time, I'm gonna come back with my hot air. Like I did the first time, I'll come back with my hot air, and I will just make sure that this thing is seated properly and I don't have any issues. So normally I'd have more of the board off my desk like that. And the reason for that is the more you have off your desk, then you don't have to worry so much about the actual desk absorbing the heat. Because when the desk absorbs the heat, then it obviously is going to take more heat for you to get the job done, which is not what you want. Okay? You don't want to apply too much heat to the board, even though it's not going to completely wreck the board. You just don't want to. So like I said, as soon as this thing is able to move, I'm just going to tap it a few times, and then I am good with that. What that's also going to do is inside these holes where you have your solder, it's going to cause the solder to come up through those holes and make a better contact with the joint. So, and while I'm here and the board is still hot, I'm just going to add some solder to these. Just like that. And then let's do it one more time. One more time, we're just gonna get it up to temp and then move it around one more time, and that should do it. And then just make sure that you check everything and clean it up. See, when I do it like this, what I notice is I have to go back and I have to clean the port properly. If not, then sometimes it seems like I'm getting no signal and issues like that. So just make sure that you go back and you double check everything. And there we go. So now we can look on the backside and see what it looks like over there. So there it goes. Looks like factory. See, everything looks like factory now. So that's how you do that, and that's how you get that factory look. At least for me, that's how I was able to get that factory look every time and get these ports really nice and sturdy in there. And I don't have too many returns. I do still get some returns on other issues, which I've been able to fix. But for the most part, yeah, that just, doing it this way has been working out great for me. But this might work for me and might be harder for someone else to replicate. So just keep that in mind. Just because I do it this way doesn't mean that you have to do it this way. This is just an example of how, I've been able to get it done. And like I said, you just go in and make sure you clean up everything here. It's very, very important that you do, because there might be some flux in the ports. So let me go ahead and show you guys the over the dash cam. So all I'm doing is just brushing. And if you want to, you can go ahead and check for the diode mode. Check to make sure that everything is good in there, and then you can go from there. If not, then and you trust your work and believe in your work, then you can assemble. But let me go ahead and look. Looks really, really good. Okay. What else? What else? Okay, here we go. If there's any flux left over, this stuff works. Let me show you guys that. This stuff works. If you have any flux left over, flux off, works really good. Okay. And finally, just to make sure that everything that's maybe in between the ports is all blown out. So I spent a lot more time cleaning up than anything else. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and put this thing back in the housing and test it. That is the next step, because you want to make sure that you have a working console before you give it back to the customer. And you don't have to put everything in. So I don't put the fan back in just in case I run into an issue. I can go back and I can take care of that without having to take the fan back out and all that good stuff. So I personally do not put the fan back in right away. I wait till after I've tested and made sure that it's working properly before I put the fan back in. All right, now time to test it. As you can show you guys that. So as you can see, hold on one second. Let me add. So as you can see, I got HDMI cable and I got a console. I don't have the fan in it. Like I said, I usually don't test it with the fan in. I'll go back later on and I'll put the fan in once I've tested and make sure that it's working good. So I have the HDMI cable plugged in. Now let me find a power cord here. Okay, so we have a power cable and the power button is hooked up. And let me switch here. Now let's turn it on and let's see what happens. Right, so don't see anything yet coming from it. And it went straight to the white light. And the port is solid. Normally when these things, the HDMI port is damaged on them, you tend to get like the blue light first, and then it'll do like a power cycle, and then it will turn on. But this one didn't. Okay, there we have the blue light. Let's see if we get video. No video as of yet. So maybe we have something else going on here, or maybe it's just my cable that I'm using. So the console is fully on now. All right, let's try one more time. So this is what I meant by cleaning up the port a few times, because sometimes there might be flux inside the port and it's causing these issues. If not, then what you have to do is just take the board back out and check on the back side, just set diode mode and see if everything is okay on it. With, I guess, maybe the way that I'm soldering it, sometimes the video don't come on right away. I'm not 100% sure, but does it work after I'm done? Yes. Uh, let's see. Let's try different input. Don't want to. Don't want to. I want it maybe Maybe we just deactivate and activate, and then we get a picture. All right, console is fully on. We're getting no video. Okay. It's all shiny in there, like there is flux in there still. Like I said, that's the only thing that seems to get me every time is flux being inside the port after a repair. Yeah, the console is fully on right now. We should have an image, unless we have something else going on with our capture card here, causing it not to show a video. So let's unplug this, and I'm gonna try another PS5 that I have here. That I have issues with this one, which this one is a special case. Um, and the reason why I say that is because it's a PS5 Slim, and maybe this is a common issue with them. I will address this in another video, the issue that I had with this one. But let's just see if we get image. Yeah, we don't get any image on this one either. That's what it looks like. So it's not. So I think the HDMI port is fine. I think maybe something is going on with my HDMI cable or the capture card, one or the other. And maybe there's something going on with the capture card. Oh, there we go. All right, so there we go. So this one is showing now. Let me try the other one that we just repaired. So I like I said, I think there's definitely something going on with my capture card. I think it might just be the settings that I for whatever reason, maybe I don't know. Why do I have to keep on messing around with that setting in order for it to do what it's supposed to? I have. Okay. There we go. We just turn on the other one, and let's see what happens. So this one is still going through its phase. It's still blue light pulsing. And we should have video right this second. But unfortunately, we don't still. And I had this issue before, and I thought maybe it worked itself out. So I thought turning on the setting that it would. I thought the settings would, whenever the console would turn on, the setting would cause it to switch on because for whatever reason it's not switching on. So let's go ahead and let's take this back apart again and let's see what we got. I'm just going to diode mode and make sure that everything is clean. Just turn on back this one. Yep. Like I said, this is the only thing that I've experienced with doing it this way is for whatever reason, I'm not 100% sure. It's like sometimes I don't know if it's the HDMI port or what's causing it not to, function properly whenever I'm finished. So let me look into this one. Let's see if we see anything that looks out of the ordinary. Everything seems fine. I don't see anything that looks like it's not soldered in properly. This Yeah, all of these look good. I'm just checking let me switch over for you guys. I'm just checking in between each. So I'm just checking in between here. Because sometimes what I found out is that if there's a little bit of flux in between here, it will cause problems. So like that, I can see in between them now. So like I said, all these pins are soldered. All those pins are soldered, and this is where you can see some of the flux there. You can even see some inside of here. Okay, and let's blow it out, and then we'll test it one more time. Had some flux come out. But let's test again. If not, this is a deep dive for whatever reason. I don't believe it's an HDMI encoder, and I'm not gonna go chase that down. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not the HDMI encoder. You can change it and it'll bring the picture back, but that was never your issue. I mean, it has to be something major for it to be an HDMI encoder. Like usually, like maybe like a lightning strike or something like that, and that knocks out video. Then yeah, you might have an HDMI encoder issue, but outside of that, usually not. At least that's been my personal experience. When I first started, every time I seen an issue with no picture, I would just go for the HDMI encoder, and I'd go on like one of the forums and I would read, and they'll be like, "Oh, HDMI encoder." Everybody says HDMI encoder, and I would change the HDMI encoder, and sometimes it wouldn't fix it, and other times it would. So, what's going on here? So was like a hit or miss, and that's what made me realize that it's not the encoder, because if it was, man, every time you fix it, every time you replace the encoder, you would immediately have image back, and that was not the case. You'll still find yourself in issues, and usually what I do is just, if I run into those issues, I just replace the HDMI port one more time, and that has reaped more benefit for me than actually replacing the encoder. All right, so let's switch again here, and then let's see what happens. We have our blue light, and we have white light, and we still have no image. That's what it looks like. So let's go back into here, which I think my capture card, my issue. Yep, capture card, and there we go. So I don't know what's up with this capture card that does this, but I mean, at first it was not the capture card. It was most definitely it needed to clean the port out a little bit more, and that did most of the work for me, cleaning out the port. But for whatever reason, it's like every time I don't know. All right, so I'm gonna unplug everything again, and for testing purposes, we will plug HDMI port back in, or HDMI cable back in, and then we'll try to power it up again and see what happens here. All right, so we've pressed the power button. Okay. Well, that seemed to be working. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.